This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
Welcome inside the studio to a Flipadelphian Thursday. It is a wonderful another edition of the Bax and Grant Sports Show. I'm Bax. He's Grant.
Yeah, okay. I was like, are we
doing
this again?
Are
we doing this again?
You know who you are, Grant. I just wanted to make sure the fans knew who we were. Welcome inside the studio, though. We're excited to be here. Our apologies for being on the air later than normal today. We had massive technical difficulties, meaning I forgot my laptop charger. And then it just kind of all spiraled.
Tried to use the computer in the studio that crashed right as we got everything set up.
Everything was set up, and then that computer was like, time for an update. I'm like, no, and it's not. And then the whole computer just reset itself. So
then we used another computer, started the show, and then that crashed right when we started it. So, yeah, it's just
we will be taking donations for new computers if you would like to, because, the world seems to be against us today. So our apologies for starting a little bit later today than we normally wanted to. For those of you that listen to us live here on Spreaker, you normally can catch us Monday through Friday from 7 to 8 a.m. Central right here on Spreaker.com. But you can also catch us on Sports Radio America from 11 to 1 p.m. Central Time on Live 365 and TuneIn. And then on demand anytime you want on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Spreaker.com.
You can also find us on Facebook at the Bax and Grant Sports Show. You can also head over to Twitter and find us at BG Sports Show. That's at BG Sports Show on Twitter and Instagram. And Baxter is on Twitter at Baxter Colburn, and I am at Grant's Rant BGSS.
Absolutely. And if you ever want to get a hold of us, you can always shoot us an email also at bgsportshow@gmail.com as well. Big show for you coming up today. We will have Simon Mitchell on the show all the way from England, from Norwich. He'll be joining us to speak on the Euros. The qualifications for the Euro 2016 tournament over in Europe.
Like the money? Or
well, it is the World Cup. You know what the World Cup is?
Right,
This is the European version of that. We're just European nations.
Kind of like CONCACAF?
Basically, yes. So
I know stuff.
Everybody's got their own. I know. I was like, oh, Grant, you actually know what you're speaking of. Well done.
What?
So we'll have him on a little bit later.
Gold Cup?
That's the CONCACAF Gold Cup, yes. And this
yeah.
I think the Euros are just called the Euros, honestly.
Gotcha.
The European Championships or something of that nature. David Kenyon will be on next segment also to help us preview the Green Bay Packers-Bears game, and then Connor Christensen will have his fight corner as well later on in the show.
Ronda Rousey's starring in a movie.
I'm excited. Ronda, what a gal.
I'm going to go see that movie. No idea what it's about.
Isn't it Roadhouse?
Yeah, something like
All
that.
I could hear is Peter Griffin from Family Guy, Roadhouse. I don't remember exactly the context of it, but I remember that being funny for some reason. So
that's funny.
I'm going to laugh. Well, Grant, I'm excited because our first segment today involves a new feature on the Bax and Grant Sports Show. It will traditionally be done on Wednesdays, but due to my creative juices only kicking in yesterday afternoon, I decided to do this today. Because today is the first official day of the NFL season, the regular season kicks off tonight. The New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers going head-to-head, getting ready to go. Tom Brady is mad, and he is ready to go. So I'm excited for that, but that's a whole nother point.
It'll be good to see how the New England Patriots really are. And like any football that's not preseason, now that the
Keeping
speculation...
the starters in more than 5 plays will be wonderful.
The speculation is now time to be done, and now it's real football, even though preseason is real football. But we're getting down into it, and then we can't say, oh, well, they did really good these first couple of drives, so they're going to do really well. Or the offense struggled for a couple of drives, so they're just going to be bad all season. Now we get to see how the offense makes changes and shifts and, stuff like that. So that'll be really exciting. It's obviously regular season football. It's second to Christmas, opening day, really, for all you football lovers out there. So it's gonna be a good game too. Patriots versus Steelers. That's a classic one.
That's tonight. Tonight you're not gonna want to miss it on primetime television on NBC, I believe, is where the game shall be viewed on. But the reason we say all that, Grant, is there will be a new fixture here on our show. We will now officially have Bax and Grant NFL Power Rankings every week now. The way it works is we have our guests, our analysts that we have on our show vote on their top 10s, and then we assign a point value to each position. If you're given a number 1 ranking, you're given 10 points, 9, 8, 7, 6, all the way down to 1 if you are a 1 through 10. So we had 10 different people, including ourselves, cast our votes for who our top 10s should be.
There was some interesting top 10s.
There were some interesting top 10s. There was a pretty standard variation of the top 4 every time, though. So we are excited to announce our first official preseason, because the season technically starts tonight. So our first before the season power rankings, and then we'll kind of keep track of them throughout the rest of the season. So our 2 teams looking in before we get to, I always think it's good to just know who's on the bubble. Looking in, our 2 teams looking in, we have the Minnesota Vikings and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, neither of those teams surprises me. I'm a little shocked that Baltimore's not a little higher.
Right, same here, because I believe I put them in my top 10. Lower spectrum, obviously, but I still think that they're a top 10 team. And I'm just going to go into it. I think our number 10 team that we have is the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes.
And in my personal opinion, I think the Ravens are better than the Cardinals.
I would agree with that.
I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to be one team that drops off significantly from last year. So, I guess we'll have to see, but Baltimore Ravens I'm a little shocked by. I'm glad that the Minnesota Vikings got up there, because just for fun, I went in and looked at some other power rankings from like NFL.com or ESPN, stuff like that, and they had the Vikings down around 15 and 16, and one of the guys was like, I know people are saying nobody talks about the Vikings, but we are, and I'm like, no, you're not. Then why are you putting them in this later half
we're talking about them in terms of teams that aren't not going to make the playoffs. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, Minnesota's got a straightforward chance. People are saying, oh, well, Detroit will be the second best team in the NFC. Where are the NFC North? Well, where's Detroit? Detroit got no votes from anybody in our power rankings, our preseason power rankings.
I think that's another team that's going to drop off. I don't know why people think they're going to be good.
I don't think they will be.
Their defense or their offense is going to be maybe a little bit about the same as last year, but their defense is going to take a hit.
Now, I do find it interesting, so we're going to talk about the point values. Minnesota received 9 total points. Baltimore got 10 total points in their power ranking votings. Minnesota received 5 total votes for them, and that other team, Baltimore, that's who it was. Baltimore only received 3 votes. But they still had higher votes, though. One person actually had Baltimore all the way up in 4th place.
Wow. That's a little high, but okay. Okay.
So that's where Baltimore got a majority of the points. So Arizona is our first top 10 team that is in our power rankings. Our number 9 team will make David Kenyon happy. That is the Miami Dolphins. They have 19 total points out of all the votes.
I can see it.
Miami was a consistent team in the voting. They received 6 out of the 6 votes from the 10 people that voted. They did decently well, in the voting, but 19 total points is not horrible. But when you consider who our top 3 or 4 teams are, they are a long way off to go.
Right.
Now, the number 8 team, Grant, here in our Baxton Grant NFL Power Rankings, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Is 8 too low of a spot for the Eagles?
I think that is a pretty decent spot for them, just because, with everything that's been happening with the Eagles this offseason, we just don't really know what they're going to look like. Yeah, we saw them in preseason, but we didn't see the whole game. And you need to see the whole game because, obviously, you play the whole stinking game.
Yes.
So I think that's a fair number because if you put them too high, that's being a little bit too optimistic, I think. It's like, so where are you getting this from? Because who knows if Sam Bradford, he did well in preseason, but is he going to do well all throughout the season?
I think they're putting too much hope in Sam Bradford, personally.
Right, and I don't know if it was just over speculation, but we were expecting to see crazy, weird, like Wildcat or just totally strange.
It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it really was because we were thinking, okay, he possibly doesn't want Bradford, Tebow, who they ended up cutting, and not Geno Smith, but the Mark Sanchez,
the other Jets quarterback.
Right. But they can't honestly have one of those guys want to play your standard quarterback, how to play your standard quarterback position, and then you have the Legion of Zoom. So obviously they're going to do something weird. No, they just came out and normal, and people are just
pretty straightforward, with what they were doing.
People are like, what? really are you doing?
Yeah.
So I think
and maybe that's all just a smokescreen. Maybe they're going to come out week 1 and just start going trippy crazy with people. So
that they might be doing that.
Exactly.
You never know.
Exactly. Well, Philadelphia has our number 8 spot on our Bax and Grant Sports Show Power Rankings, as voted on by our analysts and guests. Our number 7 team in our power rankings is the Dallas Cowboys. They acquired 34 total points in the voting process. They received a total of 8 votes throughout the 10 people that voted. Nobody placed them higher than 5th in their power rankings.
And I think I placed them in 5th.
Yeah,
I think
there was 2 different people that put them in 5th place.
Yeah, because I think 7 is a little low for Dallas. I think they have a fantastic offense and a decent defense, not a great defense, but they have a fairly good offense. One of the best in the league, in my opinion. If Tony Romo plays like he did last season, that's kind of like the big thing, because Tony Romo has had ups and downs. Last year, he saw probably one of the best seasons that he's ever played.
He was in the MVP talk for a while.
Yeah, and I can't remember the last time he really ever did that well compared to last season. So I think if Tony Romo plays the same, you'll see the Dallas Cowboys jump up in that poll a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I think Dallas will be much higher towards the end of the season. Our number 6 team in the Bax and Grant Sports Show Power Rankings is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had 38 points, and they, rightfully so, I feel like earned it. They were voted on by 9 people. There was 9 out of the 10 people that voted for our power rankings that placed Pittsburgh not only in their top 10, but also placed them fairly high. So they grabbed the 6th spot in our power rankings. Pittsburgh, we know what they can do. We're well aware that they have Antonio Brown when Le'Veon Bell comes back from his suspension. We definitely know what he can do.
Right.
Ben Roethlisberger, he's always good.
Yeah.
He's always pretty talented. Heath Miller at the tight end spot, sure, he's a little bit older. Still a consistent option there on the offensive side. Defensively, that might be where they struggle this year. They're missing Troy Polamalu, who retired. James Harrison, yeah, well, he's an older guy, but we'll see. They've got a few younger guys on that team. Number 6 for Pittsburgh. If I had my way, I would probably flip-flop Dallas and Pittsburgh in ours. But
probably
Pittsburgh was the way it was voted on by everyone in our our analytic group here. So we have Pittsburgh at our 6th spot. Entering into the top 5. Now, this is a good grouping of top 5, I feel like. It was very contested for a while. Number 5 is Denver Broncos with 46 total points. Number 5 seems fair to you, Grant, or should they maybe be higher?
If anything, I'm thinking they could be lower. So I think 5 is actually a pretty decent spot. Comparatively looking at the 4 teams and looking who's below it, I think if anything, which I don't think you really need to, if anything, you would flip the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Denver Broncos, or even maybe Dallas up in that 5 spot and then move Denver and Pittsburgh down a spot respectively, if anything, but I think Denver's at a pretty good spot with 5.
I think so. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas, the C.J. Anderson attack coming out of the backfield. Well, obviously, Peyton Manning is kind of good as well. And then you've got a good, solid defense with Denver as well, with DeMarcus Ware and a few other talented guys on their squad. Von Miller also.
And they might, and depending if they want to play Monte Ball at all this year, if he has any injury.
Cut him, so.
Did they cut him? I thought they were talking about trading him.
No, they cut him.
Oh, they cut him?
Yeah, I thought you knew. I'm sorry. That's why I didn't bring it up.
No. There was I thought I heard talks earlier this week. Maybe it was it later than the cut?
No, it was pretty straight up on the cuts. He
was
one of their
to make the 53? Oh, because I heard talks that they were talking about trading him.
No, he's a man for hire right now.
Oh, well, oops. Yeah, because I thought I was going to say, well, there's trade rumors about him, but if
he's
hold
gone.
On, okay.
Yeah, they waived him.
Well, I'm not really surprised by that, honestly.
He did not have a good preseason, honestly, and rightfully so.
He never had a really good regular season.
True.
Anytime anyway.
Also very true. All right, well, Grant, now we enter into our final 4 here on the Bax and Grant Sports Show as we release our first official NFL Power Rankings. Remember, you can catch them every Wednesday now on the Bax and Grant Sports Show. Our number 4 team with 69 points is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Indianapolis has been favored to be that one team that quite possibly could make it out of the AFC this year. However, when you've got a team like New England and then Denver is always just lurking, It's hard. It's really hard. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are terrific quarterbacks. Andrew Luck is fantastic. He's not terrific. He's fantastic. I think terrific is way more than fantastic. But in my dictionary,
I think he'll change minds if he goes to the Super Bowl this year. If he wins the AFC Championship, I think you'll have people stop underrating Andrew Luck, because I think that's what people are doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're still giving him credit for being a great quarterback, but I think he deserves maybe not to be up like with an elite quarterback with like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, but be on the level of, or maybe like lower level of a Ben Roethlisberger tier, or.
So would you make the argument that Ben Roethlisberger is better than Andrew Luck, or would you say Andrew Luck is better than?
I'd say at Andrew Luck's point of his career right now is better than when Ben Roethlisberger was at this point in his career.
Okay.
Right now, I'd actually say they're fairly even compared to Ben Roethlisberger. His season last year was one of his best seasons that he's ever had, arguably.
Thanks to Antonio Brown,
right?
More than anything.
But I mean, you have a weapon, use him. You have to get him the ball still. So
Exactly.
I'm not taking anything away from Roethlisberger. He had a great season, and I say right now they're about the same.
Fair enough.
If anything, I'd maybe give like a point more to Andrew Luck just because he's younger and he's earlier in his career.
I would have to agree with you on that one. All right, well, our top three now, this is where things get interesting. We had a tie for second place, but we sorted it out based off of who got more first place votes, which ended up putting our beloved Green Bay Packers in third place.
Garbage.
They had 88 total points. They received 10 votes from everybody was voted. Everybody voted for Green Bay. They received only one first place vote, and
they had more than one.
they only had one first place vote. Oh, I'm sorry, they had two.
I was going to say, I saw more than one.
Green Bay had two first place votes. Either way, they did not have enough to overcome the New England Patriots.
I'm like, I was one.
That's right. I'm sorry, there was one more. I miscounted on my sheet here. But anyway, Green Bay had two first place votes, but was not good enough to overtake the Patriots, who had four first place votes when it came to the tiebreaker. So both New England and Green Bay receiving 88 points. Green Bay will take a third place spot in our power rankings. New England will grab second.
You want to know why? You want to know why everybody's just being dumb and not thinking clearly?
Please, enlighten me.
It's because if this was Jordy Nelson on the team not injured, they'd all be one. But now just because they lost one wide receiver, everybody's like, oh no, the Packers aren't going to the Super Bowl anymore. Because everybody was like, oh yeah, Packers got Super Bowl 50 in the bag kind of thing. Jordy goes down. Oh no, they're going to go 0-16 kind of thing. I'm just like, everybody calm down. They have decent receivers.
Yeah, they do.
Picked up Butterfingers. We'll see how he does.
Jamie Jones.
And people are just, I think, overreacting to the Packers not being able to do well this year. I think they're still number one team.
Fair enough.
In my opinion.
All right, fair enough. Like we said, the New England grabs the number 2 spot. They have 88 total points and 4 first place votes. And your number 1 team in the Baxton Grand Sports Show power rankings before the regular season kicks off is the Seattle Seahawks. They have 91 total points. They received
garbage.
4 first place votes. The lowest ranking that they were given was a fourth place vote. But other than that, they had 4 first place votes and multiple second place votes as well.
I wonder who gave him a 4th place vote.
I think that was you, Grant.
Was it?
Pretty sure it was you. So real quickly, one more look through our power rankings. Seattle is number 1, New England 2, Green Bay 3, Indy 4, Denver 5, Pittsburgh 6, Dallas 7, Philly 8, Miami 9, and Arizona 10. Remember, our power rankings will be coming out each and every Wednesday here on the Baxton Grand Sports Show, and we look forward to hearing more about how people will vote as the season goes on. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, David Kenyon will be here to join us and talk about the Packers-Bears game. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Max and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Max.
And this is Grant.
Welcome back inside the studio. In our first segment, we released our first official Max and Grant Sports Show Power Rankings. You can go check them out. They will be officially released on our Facebook and Twitter pages after the show, so you can go in and listen to them. Yeah, so you can listen to them by looking at them with your eyes, because that's how your
good idea. Yeah,
science
I like that.
Body. Yeah,
science for science.
That's how it works. No,
I just want to make one quick point.
Please. I'm dying to know.
When I came out and voted, it was completely unbiased. I mean, it might look like it, but
it didn't look unbiased.
I felt like it might have looked a little
I'll
biased.
Be honest.
But
when I was tallying, I'm like, really, Grant?
No, that's my honest opinion.
Okay.
I put the
Nothing wrong
Seahawks
with
fourth
that.
because I thought, honestly, that the Colts and the Patriots are a better team than the Seattle Seahawks this year.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to be as good as everybody else thinks they are. I think they're going to fall off a little bit. Definitely still make the playoffs. I'm not that crazy. But I don't think they're going to be as good as people are going to say they are.
Fair enough. Okay, well, it is Thursday, Grant, which means that our good friend from Bleacher Report and the Sports Nut, David Kenyon, joins the show. David, welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning.
How are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well.
Well, that's good. Are you excited for football tonight, David?
I am, but I am just so looking forward to sitting on my couch all Sunday and watching 11 hours of football. That's going to be a great day.
How does your wife feel about that?
She's got to work, I think.
Oh,
So
perfect.
I'm in the clear for a little bit.
For at least some of that, and then she'll come home and be like, oh, right, hello, hi, football.
Spend time with me.
Yes, right. Thankfully, the Packers have a noon game, so you're a Packers fan, kind of, aren't you, sort of?
I will support the Packers so that she is not sad.
That's a smart man.
Good.
Well done. Well done, sir. I don't think anybody can fault you for that. Well, looking at this coming week, Kenny, obviously there are some big games coming up. Obviously, tonight is the season opener, New England and Pittsburgh. Why don't we start with that game really quick, and why don't you just give us a brief overview of just kind of what to watch for in tonight's game?
Tonight is a very fun, high-scoring game in my mind. There are so many injuries, and both defenses are pretty bad. First off, suspensions ain't injuries. First off, the Steelers will be without Le'Veon Bell and Martavis Bryant. So D'Angelo Williams is going to have to step in, and he's not very good. So the Pittsburgh running game isn't really going to be able to take off, especially because, as you guys probably saw, when the Steelers played the Packers, Marquise Pouncey broke an ankle, so he's not going to be there. So Ben Roethlisberger is going to have to throw to Antonio Brown and Marcus Wheaton and Heath Miller throughout the night. And then on New England, they will be without LeGarrette Blount and Brandon LaFell. And then also their center was placed on the IR designated to return, which is pretty scary, Brian Thorpe, with a concussion.
Oof.
And so if they know he's going to be out for, I think it's 9 weeks, depending on where their bye week is, and I think it's week 5. But if they know he's going to be out that long with a concussion, that's scary.
No kidding. Especially, I mean, you hear most concussions, you usually miss a game, I think is what they try to hold you back for. But we had Corey Plath on the show yesterday, David, talking about concussions, and he was talking about the different stages of concussions. It sounds almost to me like he had maybe more of a stage 2 or a stage 3 concussion. Do you know for a fact which one he had?
I do not know.
But I kind of, going to what we were talking about the other day, we're learning more and more about concussions, and you said normally it's if they about miss a game.
Usually they hold you out just for safety reasons, yeah.
Look at Jared Aberdarius. He was out for an entire month, and you're seeing now with a concussion maybe out for 9 weeks. Maybe just the research and everything and our understanding is widening, and maybe a game really isn't enough. So, that could definitely pose a factor.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I think it'll be an interesting game to watch tonight from a lot of different facets. Do you have a favorite in this game tonight, David?
I'll take the Patriots 10 times out of 10.
That's fair.
I just don't think the Steelers have enough defense to the point of stopping Tom Brady, if there's any chance whatsoever, Brady makes a couple mistakes, and it won't be because of the rust, but I guarantee you somebody will say that. Just think about how much quarterbacks don't play in the preseason anyway, but that's a tangent, and I won't go there.
Thank you.
Antonio Brown is amazing, outstanding, superb, stellar. I don't know how many adjectives I can use, but he might go for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns tonight simply because he has to.
Yes, yeah. It's at that point tonight where it's like, look, if Antonio Brown does not have a good game, this isn't one of those games where Ben Roethlisberger can do well. He needs his supporting cast, the limited supporting cast around him to play well.
Now, with one of the best centers, in my opinion, in the game, Pouncey being out for an extended period of time, and with not LeGarrette Blount, Le'Veon Bell, that's what the name I was looking for. Almost said LeGarrette Blount. Le'Veon Bell being suspended, like you said, and the run game now pretty much being gone, how badly does that affect the offense? Does that make it where you're only going to get about maybe 50 rushing yards this game, and then they can just spread everybody out and then protect the pass because your run game's not going to be anything? Because you pretty much can't go up the middle because you have your better center gone. So as the Steelers, David, what do you do to solve this problem?
I think the biggest thing that they'll do to counteract a limited run game, I don't think it's non-existent, but the combination of a weakened offensive line and D'Angelo Williams doesn't really bode well for them. But what you can do is you have a pseudo-run game, basically. Screen passes. They'll use Dre Archer, a quick little back, a second-year player out of Kent State. They'll put him in, those swing passes, screens. They'll throw screens to Antonio Brown. The Steelers have options, but obviously they're not ideal options compared to handing off to Le'Veon Bell or dumping it down to Le'Veon Bell. You're going to have to use Antonio Brown and Dre Archer more because that's the speed that they can get at the line of scrimmage.
No, I completely understand that, and that makes pretty straightforward sense. Now, transitioning gears here, so I think tonight will be a good opening game. It won't be one of those opening night games where it's like, oh great, it's the Browns and the Jaguars. It's like no one cares. No, it's two high quality teams. Traditionally, yes, like you said, both teams are missing people for injuries or suspensions, but it's Tom Brady, it's Ben Roethlisberger on a national stage. I think they'll do a good job of entertaining tonight. Now, I think with the one game that a lot of people in the Midwest especially are looking forward to, especially in the NFC North, is the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. Green Bay going on the road to Chicago on Sunday afternoon, a noon game. Green Bay is favored in this game by only 7 points. David, what is this game looking like in terms of an opening division game? Is there an added sense of excitement for it, or is this kind of it's in the bag for Green Bay? Jay Cutler shouldn't even bother putting his pads on.
Well, I would say it's pretty much in the bag. I really struggle to believe that the Bears defense can stop Rodgers with or without Nelson. They're not going to stop Rodgers. They gave up 6 touchdowns in one half last year, and they didn't get too much better on defense. So, yeah, Nelson's going to be gone, so Rodgers throws 4. It's just tough to think that the Bears have enough defense, and the Bears just inevitably struggle against the Packers as of late.
Well,
so,
yeah, continue.
Green Bay wins, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that, but remember last year, and keep in mind, it is a divisional game, and always divisional games are just a little different.
There is that edge.
Yeah,
yes.
With just rivalries and knowing the team so well. But then if you look at last year, and I know it's a different team, but you look at the Detroit Lions, and it was at the beginning of the season, and nobody was really giving the Lions much credit. And then the Lions come out with this supposedly just tattered defense. They're basically pulling guys off the street saying, here, swat this ball out of the air, and if you have a chance to catch it, go do that and tackle the other guy with the ball. Basically, and then saying, go have fun, don't screw up. And then they come out and they just totally destroy the Packers' offense. is there going to be something like that we see this year, or is just the Bears' defense so bad that it's not even going to matter?
Well, the Lions, they had the pieces, and if you have a defensive line like the Lions had, that can happen. And then they had DeAndre Levy step up in a big way when Stephen Tulloch was an idiot and celebrated and tore his ACL.
One of the worst ways to ever go out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But the Bears, they just don't have that talent. They're just not going to make a statement like that, I guess you could say. There's no way.
No, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, they cut Tim Jennings, one of their longtime veterans on the defense, and they just haven't had a solid pass rush for a while. And yeah, Jared Allen's on that defensive line, but he's not the same Jared Allen that he was a few years ago. So overall, though, when it comes to this game, obviously Green Bay is my pick. Even from a non-biased perspective, Green Bay is still my pick in this game because I think the Packers' offense will be far too much for the Bears' defense to handle. And even though the Packers' defense is not 100% sound, I think they'll still be able to handle pretty much anything that Matt Forte and Jay Cutler throw at them. So any prediction score-wise for this game at all, David?
Well, I think it all just depends on what the official word is on the Bears receivers, because Alshon Jeffrey and Eddie Royal and Marquise Wilson, they've all been out of practice. They finally came back like yesterday, like Cobb did. So if any of them can't play, it'll probably be pretty bad. But if all three of them do play, I would take Green Bay in this one like 31-20. Cover the spread. You said it's 7 points. I think that might be a little low, but then again, I've always learned don't mess with Vegas. So
Very true.
Probably ends up 28-21.
Fair enough. All right, well,
I'll take 31-20.
31-20 just to be safe. Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you so much for stopping by today, David. I wish we had more time with you, but we're running a little behind here on the show. So thank you for your insight. It's always a pleasure, and we look forward to hearing from you on Tuesday after we have all fully recovered from the opening weekend of NFL football, and Grant has hopefully recovered from you thrashing him in fantasy football as well.
I'm going for the W.
Okay, you were going for the L a few days ago, so now you're going for the W?
I made a few adjustments.
Okay.
I took a good hard look at my lineup, made a few adjustments. My projected ranking went up a little bit.
He's confident, David. Watch out.
Oh, yeah.
Watch out.
Don't worry. I went from taking the L to striving for that W. I'm coming for you.
Okay. He's coming for you, David. Well, thank you again for your insight. It's always a pleasure, and we look forward to speaking with you again on Tuesday, sir.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, we're going to a break. When we come back, Simon Mitchell will be here to talk about the Euro 2016 qualifiers. It's been quite the exciting road for England. And those poor guys out in Luxembourg getting food poisoning, that's never a way to go. We'll talk about that. Don't go anywhere. This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
Welcome back inside the studio here on a Thursday edition of the Bax and Grant Sports Show. Remember, you can catch us right here Monday through Friday from 7 to 8 a.m. Central, live on Spreaker.com. On Periscope, you can watch us as well. Hello to all of you watching us on Periscope. And then you can catch us on Sports Radio America from 11 to 1 p.m. Central Time on sportsradioamerica.com, live 365, and tune in as well. He's Grant Coppersmith. I'm Baxter Colburn. Thanks for joining us today here on the show. We are now jumping across the pond. Our passports have been stamped, and we are headed across the pond to speak with our British insider on all things European soccer, Simon Mitchell. How are you, sir? It's been far too long.
Good afternoon, Bax. Good afternoon, Grant. I'm very well. I hope you both too. Excellent power rankings, but one glaring omission.
Let me guess, the Chargers?
Where are the Chargers?
Yeah, I knew it.
I believe I put them, they were either my 10 or my 11.
San
one of the
Diego,
two.
I think, got 2 votes. 2 votes total out of everybody, which is a little unfortunate, but we'll have to see if they can make a strong case coming up this season, Simon.
Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. They're going in Super Bowl 50 just for Phillip Rivers.
Just for Phillip Rivers. I think that would probably be a good way for Phillip to retire. If they won the Super Bowl this year, I think Phillip might be like, you know what, I'm done. I've played enough football that I'm just win the Super Bowl and be done.
He's done enough. He's done enough trying to make the team good by himself, putting the team on his back. He's just, I did it finally once. I'm done.
Exactly.
Check out.
Sometimes it's all you need, Grant. Sometimes that is all you need. Well, Simon, the Euros are so exciting. They're making some teams so sick they can't even play, or maybe that was just the cooking. As we heard in a story this last week about Luxembourg, they had 17 of their 21 players fall victim to food poisoning a night before their game that they had to play in Belarus. Thankfully, or maybe not thankfully, they were already out of qualification at that point. How often do you hear about some crazy thing like that, like food poisoning, happen at a major tournament like this?
Well, you've had there was a case a few years ago, many years ago, with Gary Lineker, the England striker, who had to change his shorts halfway through a game after having an accident.
Oh, my.
Probably the most high-profile case of food poisoning, not for international, probably came around about 10 years ago. Tottenham were in 4th place going into the last game of the season, and it was their first opportunity to qualify for the Champions League. They were playing West Ham United away, and they were given a dodgy lasagna. Now, this meant that they had to play a second-string team, they're losing the game 2-1, and they ended up losing 4th place to their rivals Arsenal. So there's a historical story, but this one was interesting. Luxembourg, a country of around about 45 people, mustered a squad of 21 people to even play a game. Was a miracle, but for them all to get
really
ill was just terrible.
That's what I heard, too, is that it was just that quality of food was not good and it was falling. I had heard about that Tottenham incident a few years ago also. It was a little unfortunate, but yeah, when you hear that a team gets food poisoning, you're like, oh, maybe it's just a few players, and then it was 17 of their 21 players, and at the end of the day, it really didn't make too big of a difference, though, for Luxembourg, as they are sitting in 5th out of their 6 teams in Group C in Euro qualifiers, and even Belarus, too. There's no real reason for either of those 2 teams to be shaken up about that game. But looking at the groups for Euro qualifiers, Simon, Iceland and Czech Republic hold a strong lead in Group A. The Netherlands, what's going on with them in Group A? They are sitting in 4th place. You'd think that the Netherlands, with all the firepower they have, would be challenging much higher up, especially with Iceland in their group.
Well, I mean, just to clarify this now, the Czech Republic and Iceland have qualified.
Yes.
They're through. So the way qualifying works is the best placed 3rd place team out of the other 9 groups gets qualifying automatically. Then all the 30 teams go into playoff, which we played in November. So the Netherlands, who lost 1-0 to Iceland, and then they lost 3-0 to Turkey, needing a miracle. It's out of their hands. They need Turkey to falter if they've got any chance of getting that 3rd place. But what's wrong with the Netherlands, the team that finished 3rd at the World Cup 2 years ago? Quite simply, it's a transitional period. You hear it all the time in football.
Yes.
Their attackers are all older, another year older. Robin van Persie's old, Schneider's old, Van der Vaart's old, Huntelaar is old. And the problem is all the guys that are coming in behind them that are young are very young. Depay, 21, Blind, 22. Sillessen, the goalkeeper, he's young. You've got Jordi Clasie, who's gone to Southampton, who's injured, he's young. But I'm hearing on the grapevine today that the Dutch FA are speaking to Ronald Koeman about the possibility of becoming a part-time head coach.
Oh, interesting.
Just to finish off the qualifying, to see if he can get them through, so he can keep working with Southampton. And if he gets them qualified for the Euros, he can keep the role part-time, just to step in.
Sure.
Because they don't believe that Danny Blind is the man. And I heard a great thing. It's technically the way Holland are playing at the moment, it's the blinds leading the blind. Danny Blind, the head coach, leading his son, Daley Blind, the defender.
I love it.
It made me chuckle.
That is a funny chuckle. Even Grant got a laugh out of that one, too. I love it. He gave us a little rim shock. Now, if there's one story, aside from England, Wayne Rooney setting his 50th mark, the talk this side, and I'm sure you've heard it over there in England as well, that Wayne Rooney is he now better than Sir Bobby Charlton with now that he's overtaken his goal scoring record, and that there is this notion that he might just be the best English player ever. Well, I think that's a little over ridiculous personally. How do you feel about it? What's the vibe across the British Isles?
It's a very mixed vibe. You can't take away the fact that he's scored 50 international goals.
No, you can't take that away from him at all.
You can't take that away from him at all in over 100 games. However, let me just take you across the Irish Sea to the Republic of Ireland to a little-known chap. I think you might have heard of him in the States, a guy called Robbie Keane.
Yes, yep. I'm a huge Keane fan. He's got 67 international goals. 67
international goals. So you work out whether Wayne Rooney a better player than Robbie Keane? Is Robbie Keane a better player than Wayne Rooney?
Ooh.
International football, you can't win. If you compare Wayne Rooney to Gary Lineker, to Michael Owen, to Alan Shearer, to Sir Bobby Charlton, to Jimmy Greaves, the great English strikers, he's got more goals than all of them. Has he got a better goal-to-game ratio? No, that's Jimmy Greaves. Has he scored goals in World Cups and big tournaments? He's got 1 World Cup goal in 3 World Cups. Not very good. Gary Lineker,
not at all.
Boot winner in 1986. Again, there's loads of different contravening factors, but you can't take away what Wayne Rooney has achieved for England.
He's done fantastic, and I think that he has been that lifeblood of the team these last few seasons. I mean, I would have loved to have seen his 50th goal been more of that kind of goal that Harry Kane scored, which was a brilliant left-footed goal, honestly.
I'm going to hold my hands up. I didn't watch the England game.
I didn't get a chance to catch it either. I saw the highlights of it.
I didn't watch either of them on purpose, purely because I'm an Englishman. I was born in England, but England bore me. I watched Wales play Cyprus. I watched the Republic of Ireland's game against Georgia. I even caught parts of Germany and Scotland. I even saw parts of Northern Ireland's game against Hungary. Those games are exhilarating. They were exciting purely because these are teams who can qualify for a major tournament that haven't done so for many, many years.
Which makes it
England have done it. They've won every game, 100% record, not conceded a goal, playing very dull, very boring football.
And that's kind of the vibe that I've gotten from them too. Is that look, that's great and all that. If England they're 8-0, and if they win their next 2 games, it'll be that'll make Roy Hodgson the youngest coach to ever win this amount of international games, which is great and all. Congratulations to Roy. But like you said, there's other exciting storylines going on, like in Northern Ireland, even like and even Austria playing as well as they are right now. They have a 7-1-0 record so far through qualifying. They lead Group G. I mean, they're qualified through. They've got 22 points. I think you have to commend Austria for as well as they've played right now, don't you?
You do. Austria have only ever qualified for the Euros as a tournament host. Which they did in 2008 when they co-hosted with Switzerland. They've never qualified outright. Only ever qualified via default. Iceland, they've qualified. Never qualified before. Iceland is a tiny, tiny country.
Yeah, I'm surprised they have enough people to play
tiny
soccer.
Population. They're the size of Luxembourg. They were the first team to qualify from, I think it was pot 5 or pot 6 of the seedings.
Okay.
Nobody's ever been that lowly seeded and qualified. And the great thing with Iceland is that they are a team that have come through together, that have played together for many, many years. The same with Austria. These guys have played together for 2, 4, 6 years. And the coach has stuck with them. And the FA, their relevant FA, has stuck with them. There's not been all this chopping and changing. Let's try him. in the USA, you've got Jurgen Klinsmann.
I was going to say, it sounds like a Jurgen
big
Klinsmann
players
type of
all
thing.
over the place. Yeah. So it's working. It's working, and it's going. It's the really is. You've got the Netherlands on the brink of not even qualifying. You've got Bosnia at the World Cup 2 years ago, not even qualifying. You've got Wales, who haven't played in a major tournament since 1958, 1 point to qualify. Spain, struggling to qualify. They're top of their group now, but they could still go out.
They could.
Germany,
they did. Yeah.
Germany struggling to qualify. They've only just come good in the last couple of weeks. And again, teams like Northern Ireland, who haven't, have got a wonderful international pedigree from the mid-'80s.
Yes.
Again, struggling to qualify. Sweden with Zlatan, he can't get them to qualify.
Which I think is a little funny.
Oh, well, Zlatan is Zlatan. He's just an amazing footballer. I just wish he had a bit of urgency and application. He could have been the greatest. Italy, another team struggling to qualify. And Croatia, struggling to qualify.
Well, they just fired their
Portugal,
coach.
struggling to qualify. You've got all these major nations, these big superpowers of European football. They're all struggling to qualify.
No.
So it could be a very, very interesting couple of games in the beginning of October.
Yes. No, I completely agree with you on that. One question for you before I let you go, Simon. How do you feel about Niko Kovac being sacked as the Croatian national team coach?
Sorry, I missed that.
I said, how do you feel about Croatia sacking their manager?
I didn't realise that they have they?
They did, yes. Niko Kovac was sacked yesterday.
Oh, well, I didn't realise that.
Yes.
Well, Niko, he was the manager at the World Cup, and Croatia were abysmal at the World Cup. They were terrible.
They really were. It was a bit embarrassing.
I remember we did our fantasy World Cup draft.
Yes,
if
we
you
did.
remember,
Yep.
and one of the guys selected the Croatian head coach, and he ended up with like minus 70 points just from the group games. It was a terrible performance, but they've got such quality and such skill and such quality in youth. I think it was probably the right decision to make, to be fair. If you look at where they are in the qualifying tables, they're not too high. They're struggling to qualify. Where are they? They're in F or G, aren't they? Or even H. Yeah, they're behind Norway. They could still do it.
They could. They've got 2 games left, and I think the thought right now, from what I've
left.
been hearing from the Croatian director or chief executive, they're saying, look, we've got 2 games left. Even though we just released our manager, we're hoping that the fact that there are only 2 games left, that's enough motivation for our guys to want to go out and win it for the new coach.
Well, we'll see what happens. It will be very interesting. It's going to be very exciting. And
yes.
we're a couple of in a month's time.
I'm looking
just very, very, very quickly before I
please.
I just want to get Grant's thoughts on how Mayweather's going to get on Saturday night against Berto.
Oh, Grant actually had to stepped out of the studio. Actually, he always leaves.
Has he? I've missed him.
He did. He leaves early on Thursdays. Unfortunately, he has to go to that college class kind of thing. Unfortunately.
Okay. Well, pose the question.
I will.
For him, and I'll listen. I'll listen in for his response.
I will. I will ask him and see what he thinks about it. But Simon, I appreciate you taking the time today, sir. It's always a pleasure to get to speak to you. I always feel a little bit more insightful on the soccer world when we get to speak. So thank you for taking the time today.
Yes, sorry, Bax, we've done that again.
That happens. Hey, I forget. My mom
Bax.
can't even get my name right some days because I have 3 brothers, so she's always calling us different names. So you're not the first one. Don't worry.
Thank you, Bax. Have a great weekend. I'll catch up soon.
You too, Simon. Enjoy your weekend.
Cheers.
Simon Mitchell, our resident English soccer man. We love having him on the show. He's such a great attitude and great atmosphere to have around the show. So we appreciate him coming on. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, Connor Christensen's here to talk about his fight corner. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax. No Grant. Grant just took off, unfortunately. He had to get off to class since we got a little bit later start when we were doing our show here live on Spreaker.com. You can catch us most days from 7 to 8 a.m. Central, live on Spreaker.com, on Spreaker.com, and then you can catch us from 11 to 1 p.m. Central on SportsRadioAmerica.com, live 365, and tune in as well. So, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, you're just stuck with me for the remainder of the show here. But we are going to bring in Connor Christensen to join us on the show today. So, Connor, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Not too bad, man. I'm excited. Football is back in the air, and I'm excited to finally be back and celebrating a hallowed sport. So, aside from that, though, life is good. How about you?
Oh, can't really complain. As you said, football season is just getting started. I'm excited to see the Vikings take on the 49ers.
That'll be a good game.
And I got a lot of hope.
A lot of hope.
Yeah.
Don't most Vikings fans have a lot of hope when the season starts?
Oh, yeah. Always. Every single season. We start out with so much hope, and then we get crushed. But
you got a good squad this year.
Not this year.
You got a good squad.
This is our year.
It is. It is your year.
We do.
I'm excited for the Vikings. I'll be following them closely this year. I'm curious to see just what they can honestly do. But so Connor, you have some updated information for us on some results that have happened in recent fights. So what do you have for us there?
Last time I talked UFC, I talked about UFC 191, which was Demetrius Johnson versus John Dodson. And it has concluded, so I will go over some of the results.
Okay.
And I would just like to point out that all of my predictions were correct except one, so I feel really good about that.
Well done.
We'll start with the women's strawweight was Paige VanZant versus Alex Chambers, and I thought that VanZant was going to come out and beat Chambers probably by submission because that's how she wins all of her fights. And I was correct. VanZant defeated Alex Chambers with an armbar in the third round. So good job, VanZant. She still has a long ways to go with competing in her division. Unfortunately, the strawweight is not Ronda Rousey's division. It is Joanna Jędrzejczyk's division. And unfortunately, Jędrzejczyk is still way too much. VanZant would not last against Jędrzejczyk. So she's got a long way to go. She needs to work on her stand-up striking ability. She's really good submission wrestling, but she needs to work on her striking in order to compete with the rest of the division. Moving on, we had the light heavyweight fight between Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz, and this is the prediction I actually got wrong. I thought Blachowicz would come out and win because Blachowicz had some losses recently. He's kind of on a losing streak, and so they put him up against Corey Anderson, who's the new guy, doesn't have a ton of experience.
You'd think,
I thought that Blachowicz. Yeah, I thought Blachowicz would come out and beat him. Unfortunately for Blachowicz, Anderson did beat him. And I worry about Blachowicz because he has lost several fights in a row now, and it's hard to come back from that, both physically and psychologically. So he needs to try to figure out some way to make a change to his routine in order so he can be successful again.
Is there usually
good job for Corey Anderson?
It is, yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, a question for you. Is there normally a number in fighting, I guess, where if you lose a certain amount of fights that you're just kind of like, look, maybe this isn't for me?
It depends on the type of loss. So there are really, really good fights where both fighters fought at an incredibly high level. Now, losing that fight can or can't be just catastrophic to your motivation, to your self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
So you can give it all, come really close, and just barely lose and feel like you still fought really well, and then you can go forward. And, the fans, the UFC bigwigs or whatever, they can look at you and say, wow, he did a really good job against this person. We're going to continue to give him more fights. And then you could actually come back the next fight and win. So, but on the flip side, you could also lose just really humiliatingly. The other person could just handle you from the very start, knock you out in 2 seconds or whatever. And those fights are harder to come back from. So if you're getting more humiliating losses, see, that's the thing about UFC. The fights are so personal because it's one-on-one. I'm throwing everything I have at you.
Yep.
And I would say that normally you lose 4 to 5 fights in a row, and you really, really need to think about making a change, whether it be changing your game if you're a wrestler, changing to a striking, or vice versa, or changing weight classes even. But I would probably say around 4 to 5.
Okay.
And I don't know off the top of my head what Blachowicz is at, but he's right up there.
That's what my thought
that 4
was.
or 5 mark.
Yeah, I kind of had that feeling that it would be around that, maybe about 5 to 6. You'd be, you know what, this has been great and all, but I don't know if this is the right thing for me to be doing. So, okay, I was just curious about that. Continue on, please.
Okay. The next fight was another light heavyweight fight between Anthony Johnson and Jimmy Manuwa, and this was the only fight on the main card that ended with a KO. So Anthony Johnson KO'd Jimmy Manuwa at 28 seconds of round 2. Ooh. And this was my prediction as well. I thought Anthony Johnson would have a leg up on Jimmy Manuwa because of his wrestling ability, and that was the case. Obviously, he ended it with his fists, and both of these guys are huge KO masters. They have really heavy hands. They love the KO, but Anthony Johnson was able to pull out the win, which is good for him. And the next fight is a heavyweight fight between Andrei Arlovsky and Frank Mir. And to give you an idea of the pacing of this fight, both of these guys made their UFC debut before the U.S. invaded Iraq.
Oh wow!
So these guys have been fighting. These guys have been fighting for a long time.
Holy cow! Wow!
And also, unfortunately, for the heavyweight division, these two are kind of some of the front runners of the division. And let's just say their fight was. It didn't go quickly. The pace was slow. It was a lackluster fight. It didn't get a whole lot. It was not well received.
Like a Mayweather Pacquiao kind of fight.
Win. I don't even know if you could compare it to that because the Pacquiao and Mayweather fight was at least that was looking. People were looking forward to that one, and
I suppose, yeah,
there was more hype going into that one. No, Arlovsky did beat Frank Mir, but it was by unanimous decision, which means it went to the judges' scorecards. Not a great fight to watch, but hopefully the heavyweight division can do something here and get a fighter that's worth watching.
Yeah.
But the main event was the flyweight championship defense of Demetrious Johnson versus John Dodson. And I told you last time that this fight was going to be one that you wanted to watch because these two guys are both really, really good. And it did not end in any sort of conclusive way. There was no KO or TKO or submission victory. It ended unanimous decision, which means that the fight went the total duration of 5 minutes, 5 rounds. And Demetrious Johnson held on to his title, defeating John Dodson. So that is wonderful news for Demetrious Johnson. He continues to manhandle his division. There's no one in there who can even touch him. And I came out last time and said that if Dodson wanted to win, he had to win early. He had to come out swinging. He has a really heavy hand, and he needed to land. He needed to land it on Johnson.
Yes, yep.
And unfortunately for Dodson, that is the approach that Johnson took. So Demetrious Johnson came out and was the aggressor from the start. Dodson looked pretty good in the beginning. He had some takedowns, and Johnson couldn't land a takedown to save his life. But every time Dodson would come in and get a takedown, Demetrious Johnson would land a couple punches or a knee. And so the points that Dodson was getting for the takedowns was not enough to counteract Johnson's fast strikes. So Dodson is in a precarious situation. He's 31. He's been fighting for about 10 years, and he has now lost twice to Demetrious Johnson.
Interesting.
So as John Dodson, what do you do in that situation? Do you see, in my opinion, I think he should go up a weight class. I think he should fight at 135 because he, at 125, has the heaviest hands out of any other fighter in that division. He can knock you out with a single punch. So I think he could take that strength, go up a weight class, And not just talking about strength, talking about speed. He's one of the fastest UFC fighters that's fighting right now.
Interesting. So the amount of success.
He took that, yeah. If he took that speed and strength and moved up a weight class, he could find that he is extremely successful there.
Okay.
He's got to do something because he's a great fighter, and I'd hate to see him, fizzle out because he can't take down Demetrius Johnson, who is he's a freak of nature. Johnson is, he's now solidified the fact that he is basically the third or fourth pound-for-pound fighter. He's the third or fourth best pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That's saying
Demetrius
something.
Johnson, yeah, remember the name? He is fantastic to watch.
Interesting.
Mighty Mouse, as they call him.
Mighty Mouse. Okay.
Yes.
One other
Mighty
question
Mouse.
for you. There was a listener that just messaged in. They wanted to know if you had any thoughts about Mayweather reportedly using an illegal injection for the Manny Pacquiao fight. I'm not sure if you've heard about that or not, but I hadn't even heard about this yet either. But a listener wanted to know if you had heard about that, and if you had, what your thoughts were about it.
I have not heard about that.
Okay.
But
apparently there are reports on this that Mayweather used an illegal injection before the Pacquiao fight.
okay,
So it's news to me also. I just didn't know if you had heard it. I just said I would ask for you.
Yeah, no, I have not heard that. But I guess it doesn't surprise me. He's an aging fighter who needs a little help, I guess. Yeah, no, that would be interesting, the complications that would arise because of that. Yeah, no.
From what I'm seeing
Yeah, no,
here,
I haven't heard about it.
Okay, yeah, from what I'm seeing here, it looks like he used whatever WADA is. It's a banned IV. So he took an IV injection before the Pacquiao fight. So I'm not exactly sure, what it all is, but I just wanted to at least bring it up to you since one of our listeners asked me to ask you. So,
Okay, well, I will do some research.
Yeah,
we'll talk
please.
about that next time.
We'd appreciate it. Well, Connor, it's always a pleasure, sir. We appreciate you stopping by, and we look forward to getting your thoughts on Tuesday with your fitness tip, but also hearing how you thought the Vikings did as well on Monday night. So we look forward to hearing from you again, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Always a pleasure to be on the show.
Always a pleasure having you on. Connor Christensen, our local fight corner and fitness tip expert. We always enjoy having him on the show. We're going to go to one more quick break. When we come back, Timmy Tebow, he is no longer in the NFL. Where's he going to now? We'll talk about it. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax. No Grant. Grant was here earlier in the show, but he had to run off to class, unfortunately, since we got a little bit later start on our show today. Before we go, I wanted to talk briefly about Tim Tebow, as he is now no longer on an NFL roster. He is back working for ESPN and especially the SEC network as well. Now, there's an interesting article that came out by For the Win, which is part of USA Today Sports. And they said that there was a real hidden reason for the fact why Tim Tebow was signed on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, they say that there are a few different reasons why. Maybe Tebow still had some power left in him. Maybe they thought he still had, a decent amount of skill. However, with all of the controversy or just interesting knowledge that was swirling around when Chip Kelly was named the head coach in Philadelphia, there was that thought of what exactly is he going to do? He's going to run this Oregon-style offense. He traded away LaShawn McCoy. He had Sam Bradford at his quarterback. He was trying to do all these different things. Brought in Ryan Matthews. He had this Legion of Zoom, as people were calling. Like, what exactly is he going to do? And for what this article is suggesting, they're suggesting that the reason Tim Tebow was brought in was to be a media shield, because ESPN would rather spend hours talking about Tim Tebow and if he'll make an NFL roster, aside from Chip Kelly and the weird offense and things that he's trying to do. when you think about it for a second, that's brilliant. If that was the reason. I doubt that was the real reason, but Chip Kelly has done some pretty crazy things over his career. Bringing in Tim Tebow to be a media shield where all the media is way more focused on, Tim, how are you feeling? Coach, how did Tim Tebow do in practice? How did he do in his preseason game? Tim Tebow. No one is actually paying too much attention and behind the scenes looking at what Chip Kelly's doing, tinkering with the offense, moving different parts around, saying, all right, go out and try this, go out and try that. When realistically during the preseason, Tim Tebow barely saw the field. And when he did, he didn't perform exceptionally well. Although he did make the final cut, and then, especially when Matt Barkley was traded down to Arizona, the NFL fan base was saying, oh my gosh, Tim Tebow is actually going to make the final roster. The Eagles are going to keep 3 quarterbacks. What exactly is going to happen in that regards? But that didn't end up happening because we saw him getting released. That opened up for so much more controversy. It's even interesting because there's a picture here in the article on For the Win on usatoday.com. Just Tim Tebow speaking to the media, and it is just a pack of media personnel, microphones, cameras, everything just swarmed around Tebow. And I feel like there should be a Photoshop picture of Chip Kelly in the background, like, laughing to himself, doing something, saying, look, they fell for it. Now, whether or not you want to believe that Chip Kelly brought in Tim Tebow as a distraction or not is totally up to you. I think that if that was the case, then that was a smart move. Now, Tim Tebow, he's back at the SEC network. He's back doing inside studio commentating. It's not a bad move. I think that Tim Tebow has served his time in the NFL. I think that the amount of talent that Tim would need in order to be successful in the league is not there right now. Tim Tebow, he's got a lot to offer, but it's not in the same level of what you're going to need moving forward for an NFL team. To be an NFL starting quarterback, Tim Tebow is not the right man for the job anymore. So we'll see what happens with Tim Tebow's career going forward. I'm sure there'll be some news again in a year or two where Tim thinks he can still be an NFL quarterback. Well, Tim, he's had his time. He's had his opportunities. He had one good moment, one shining moment in Denver. After that, it's been kind of a hot mess for him. That's just kind of how we feel, though, here at the Baxton Grant Sports Show. Let us know how you feel. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Baxton Grant Sports Show. Apologies for all of you that wanted to listen to the show earlier today on Spreaker.com. We started late due to some computer issues in our studio and just our own personal computers, so apologies for that. And again, although I thought we had a pretty good show. We had our release of our power rankings, so go back and check those out by listening to our show, and you can see them posted on Facebook and Twitter in just a little while. Special thanks to David Kenyon of Bleacher Report, Simon Mitchell, our British soccer expert, and Connor Christensen talking about his UFC Fight Corner as well. Remember, you can catch us Monday through Friday right here on Spreaker.com from 7 to 8 a.m. Central, and you can catch us on Periscope as well live. You can also listen to us on Sports Radio America from 11 to 1 p.m. Central on Live 365 and TuneIn, and then on demand anytime you want to on iHeartRadio, on iTunes, and on Spreaker.com as well. Over on the social media aspect side of things, we are on Facebook at The Baxton Grant Sports Show. On Twitter, we are BG Sports Show. I'm at Baxter Colburn. Grant is at Grant's Rant, BGSS. And on Instagram, we are at BG Sports Show as well. Shoot us an email anytime if you want to as well, bgsportshow@gmail.com. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks to Grant Coppersmith. Remember, Tuesdays and Thursdays, he decks out a little early because he's got to go to class. That whole college thing. Just graduate. Do what I did. Why not? Saves time and money. Nah, that's not it. It doesn't save you any money, unfortunately. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you all again tomorrow. We've got a full, exciting show tomorrow. Sam Wallace will be here for his Running 101 segment. Can Grant finally win Name 5? Well, we'll find out tomorrow. That'll be happening tomorrow. And then we have a new, exciting, and we're keeping it a secret for now, a new segment debuts tomorrow as well. Let's just say it's got a little southern flair to it. We're not going to want to miss it. Another exciting edition of the Baxton Grant Sports Show. Tomorrow morning, we will see you all again. Have fun watching that Patriots-Steelers game tonight. We'll see you all tomorrow morning. See ya!